How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another video. So today I wanted to talk to you guys and give you guys my impressions of the new PvE mode in the brand new Overwatch Uprising event. So I wanted to give you guys my impressions because I've only had the game roughly 4 months. I got it on Christmas, so it's just a little under 4 months since I've owned the game. And since then I've mainly played competitive and not played much else. And I wanted to give you guys an opinion from someone who didn't play the Junkenstein's PvE mode when it came out in Halloween. Because like I said, I didn't own the game back then. So I can't compare this to that. I can compare it a little bit because I have obviously seen gameplay of the Junkenstein event when it came out. Hopefully it comes out again this year because I'm really looking forward to it, but it's mainly an opinion based on someone who plays mainly competitive and who hasn't had the game for that long. So we're going to get straight into it with the good things about the game mode. Now I will be referring to the Junkenstein's event a little bit for certain points because like I said, I have seen gameplay of it and things like that, even though I never played it, so I can make a little bit of a comparison, because I think that's really important, because this is basically that, but it's meant to be better. They should have took the feedback from Junkenstein's, the Junkenstein event, and made it better for the Uprising event. So like I said, I will be comparing to that a little bit. So the first thing that I'm giving it a thumbs up on is the map. Now obviously you guys know we play on King's Row, play it on the daytime, which is really cool. It's something a little bit different to what we're used to, playing it in the night time. And I live in the UK, so King's Row is my favourite map anyway. But I really like the fact that you can play it on the entirety of the map and not just in certain areas like the Junkenstein's event. I think you were limited to one area on that map for the entire PvE mode. So the fact that they've changed aesthetically the map completely on King's Row, I thought that was really cool. It looks absolutely phenomenal. So the map definitely gets a massive pro for me. It's something that I hope they take forward, and I hope that they know that this is the sort of environment that people want to see, not just limited to a certain part of the map on PvE events, because obviously they're going to do a lot more PvE events, you can definitely tell. But I hope that if it is going to be on future maps, that they don't limit it to certain areas. So the next point is the variety in enemies. I thought that was really cool, the way that they added different enemies with different abilities, rather than just sticking to similar enemies with, pretty much doing the same thing, like going up to you, shooting, you're trying to kill you, things like that. Throughout the mission from start to finish, there's specific enemies that have specific roles, and they all look different. They're not just a simple robot. You've got the little enemies that, shoot the plasma at the bomb to try and stop it, and then you've got the giant bombs, and then you've got, bastions and things like that. That's really cool. I really liked the variety of enemies. I'm not going to give it 100% pro, as you guys will know later on when I talk about the cons, but for the majority, the enemies are really cool, and I think that's definitely a win for this game mode. Compared to the Junkenstein event, from what I've seen, there were a little bit of variety, but they all pretty much tried to do the same thing, go up to you, kill you, and that's basically it. But with this event, different enemies had different purposes to actually slow you down or try and stop the payload, so I thought that was really cool. The next is the narrative of the actual game mode itself. Obviously they've tied the game mode in with the storyline, the backstory of the characters, especially the 4 that we play, and even a few more such as Gabriel, Reyes and things like that. So I thought that was really cool, that the way that the game mode fits in with the story, trying to tell us a little bit of a backstory of certain missions and events that Overwatch basically had to do, which is and Blackwatch as well, which it's really cool that they implemented Blackwatch in that way. So it definitely opens a brand new can of worms for Blizzard. They can take this to the new level, and they could just keep giving these events out every month, giving us a new little bit of story, giving us a new mission that the Overwatch team had to face and complete, and that is fantastic. Like the possibilities are absolutely limitless with this. Like there doesn't have to be a real world event like Christmas or something like that to make an event. They've, with a storyline and no campaign, they could literally think of anything and anything they wanted. And I thought that was really cool. And for the first installment of the story mode, like narrative, it's going to be really fun. So I'm really proud with the way that they handled that. And the final thing is that the game mode itself is just really fun to play. Now, like I told you guys at the beginning, I mainly play competitive. I rarely play casual unless it's with my friends. But ultimately, casual competitive, you do the same thing nonetheless. You're versing an enemy team of real players, trying to capture points and then win the game. But with this, you're always going to have that element of, difficulty. When you change the different difficulties, it's always going to be different every single time you play it. And I know obviously you're going to get different heroes online and things like that. But ultimately the goal is the same, and while it is with the PvE, there's millions of different combinations that you could do with it, and I think for me that is more fun than playing casual. I don't know why, that's just me, but like I said, for me that's definitely a massive pro. So while there is many good things about the game mode, there is some things that I'd like them to change for future game modes to make it better. I'd enjoy it a lot more than I do now. I'm not saying that it's not enjoyable, because like I've just mentioned, there's many things that I really enjoy, but there's definitely some things that they can improve on and make better for future game modes. So the first thing is replayability. Now, I know that they're all limited with the replayability that they can do for this. Obviously, this one, you've got the different game difficulties that you can choose, which is really cool. Technically, you can play it up to, 5 times on the different difficulties. And it is an improvement from the Junkenstein one, where, you didn't even have that. You just got... you started, you finished, that was it. At least with this one you can change the difficulty to make it more challenging and get a little bit of a better reward. But ultimately I think for the next one they could maybe look at things such as having alternate endings, or changing the way that things happen. So an example for Uprising would be if you failed, instead of giving you a defeat screen, they had a cutscene of what happens if you actually would have failed, and that mission did fail, or if there was a certain aspect that you could have changed to make it quicker or to make it better, or just take you down a different path or a slightly different path than you could do. An example of this would be GTA. That's the #1 game that I can think of where you can choose different ways to go, and it'll ultimately change the way that the game plays out for the rest of it, like a domino effect. So it might be something to look into. It might make it a little bit more interesting. Like I said, it is an improvement from the Junkenstein event, but it could definitely be something that they could look into to make it a little bit more fun. So the next thing is the lack of bosses. I thought it was really upsetting to get all the way to the end of the mission and to not verse like a specific boss, like a really cool boss, an unannounced boss. It was a little bit sad, the fact that they just basically copied and pasted a few more Orissas and Bastions, put them in strategic places, and then once you killed them, that was it, you won. Fantastic, the end. It would have been really cool if there was a secret boss that appeared out of nowhere that you had to kill or something like that, and actually made it more of a challenge rather than just versing the same enemies but in larger quantities. I think they really missed out with a trick on that, and it kind of felt like it was rushed in that regard. It would have been so cool to verse like a giant boss with different abilities and things like that to make it more of a challenge. I think this would have complemented it fantastically. But that's definitely one thing that they need to look at. I think, like I said, in Junkenstein's, you got to verse 5 characters like Rodog and things like that, and I think it was Mercy. So they really missed a trick with that, and I think that's something that they'll definitely need to improve on in the next events if they want to get the full playability out of the PvE. And finally, we are going to talk about the ending itself. Now, like I said, the lack of bosses, especially in the ending of it, as well as that, it was kind of sad just to get a victory screen and then call it quits. It'd have been really cool if they made like a cutscene, to show the aftermath of us winning, things like that. But no, we just got a victory screen, and that was basically mission done, ta-ra, see you later. That to me was, like I said, with the bosses, it's a little bit rushed, and it was a little bit upsetting and degrading that they didn't put a little bit more effort into this. An ending cutscene, like I said, to show the aftermath would have just it would have just finished it off. It'd have just put the bow on the box, and it'd have just finished the mission off fantastically. But like I said, it was a little bit upsetting. An easy example I could tell you of this is like certain Call of Duty zombie missions where you fail, and like a cutscene plays or something like that. But I thought that was really upsetting. But overall the game mode is absolutely fantastic. There's just a few things that I've listed that I like and what I don't like. These are personal to me. me. This is what I would want to see out of the next one. You know, take all the pros and work on the cons, and you know, implement some new things as well. Obviously, that's what Overwatch is all about. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys would have changed, what you disliked about it, what you liked about it, and hopefully Blizzard will take note for the next events. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll hopefully see you all in the next video. Take care.